So, hello everybody, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Rebecca of Libra Lights, and today I'm talking to the wonderful Cheryl about her experience of having an Akashic record reading with me. But first of all, Cheryl, could you tell everybody a bit about yourself and your fascinating life?
So I'm a 5D theatre maker, which is quite interesting since our session together. An actress, writer, and healer. And what's sort of evolved in the last year that I feel is important to say is I'm also a spiritual activist. So yeah, my teachings are quite about the fierce feminine, that kind of feeds through in all of my life. But yeah, I think that's all I need to
Yes,
say.
that's you. And some of my people who are watching this channel who are signed up to my mailing list will know who you are because I did send out your play Awaken, the
Ah,
YouTube clip for people to watch. So do you just want to tell people a bit about the Awaken
yes.
play? It's fascinating, linked into past lives and obviously Akashic records.
Yeah. So Awaken was a play I wrote about my past life being killed as a witch, this is fascinating because I listened back to our session together, and you said I had in a lifetime where I was a quiller, which I knew
Yeah.
nothing about,
Mm.
and that they read soul stories very easily. They read soul history, which I've always been able to do as a healer, that I just tap into someone's soul history. And what they do is they look in somebody's eyes and they can see their soul history. And how I wrote that play was I was doing eye to eye healing in Reiki. And then
Wow.
I saw my past life killed as a witch in their eyes. And
Wow.
I've never, and everyone else in the room were like, oh, yeah, I've had this sort of energy work feeling, and all this love and light came through them. And I saw my past life as a witch, killed as a witch. And I thought, how did that happen? Just by looking in somebody's eyes. And I'd never really made sense of how that happened to me. And when we had our session and you kind of put that into place, that it was like a lifetime, and I realized, oh, this is what I've been trained in.
So that's one of your
Um,
gifts
yeah,
that
and it
you.
really it really gave me a confirmation, because a lot of the things I do kind of organically, but obviously I know they're coming from past lives.
Mm.
But it's just to get that, oh, that was where my training was from.
Yeah.
So I wrote the play about that experience, trying to make sense of why witches were killed, and in particular why healers, mediums, witches, the ones that had these gifts that are awakening in a lot of us today. Um, yeah, and that was kind of my first big jump into being like a spiritual writer.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. Yeah, when it came up in your Akashic reading that Aquila was one of your top cosmic blueprints, I was like, I've never heard of that. It's the Altarians, isn't it, in Aquila? I'm just looking back at your
Well, it
um
was interesting. You picked out my star seed lives, which I had before our session no connection with, no awareness of. The speakers as well, you mentioned,
yes.
and the greys, which we'll get into.
The
Uh,
Greys come up, yeah.
yeah, because it's really interesting.
And there's a link with the Greys and the Altarians. I was just looking at your notes. It
Oh,
does say Altarians are from the Aquila constellation. In their immediate vicinity are home to other humanoids, reptilians, and greys. So I don't think we picked up on that in your last reading. So that's like
no,
a aha moment, isn't it?
it
Connection.
really is. And the funny, not funny, that synchronicity is, it's my third play, which I'm writing about now, which I didn't have. And this is what spirit
Oh
does.
wow.
It gets me
Okay.
to meet people that give me the seed for the plays, because all my plays are written about past life and current karma.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm writing a trilogy, so it's all from my past lives. So although I do sessions for healing and to get to know basically it's get to know myself and get the material that I need for my
Mm.
work.
Mm.
And I didn't know any of these, and since we had our session and then we had a follow-up, and I was really interested in the greys because I was horrified. I was like, I don't want a grey lifetime. But what I've really understood is why I do what I do today, which is all about soul's consciousness, soul awakening,
Mm.
souls, is because the greys lost their soul's consciousness.
Yeah.
So reclaiming that, it was quite a powerful, even though I was like, oh, what?
Yeah.
But it made me go, oh, that's everything about what I'm doing today. So it was a real gift that you gave me, giving that side that I didn't have any conscious awareness of it until our session.
It's wonderful to hear that you're using that for your next play, like using what you've learned about your soul history.
Yes.
And just for those watching, like, don't be scared of delving into your Akashic records and finding out information like that, because Cheryl is a positive soul. So before I do the reading, there's loads of checks that I do, like, is this client a positive soul? Do I have access to their Akashic records? And it was all yes. And the other thing to mention is that we all do, unfortunately, have lives where we are the perpetrators, and where, you know, unfortunately, we have done bad things. And that's one of the things I check in the records, is like, out of all lives, how many are positive and how many are negative. And for Cheryl, I'm just finding it. It was 91 positive and 9% negative, which is around the ballpark that I get for every client. But the other thing about you and your grey lives was that you turned into a positive grey. And there are positive greys out there. And I think that's one of the things that I want to get across. There's another client that I'll be speaking to later where nearly a whole cosmic blueprint is Zeta, Reticuli, Reptilian, and Greys. But she is one of the most beautiful soul. I've got goosebumps. And her mission is to find other souls on the planet who are maybe getting a bit of a bad rap and feeling guilt and shame because they come from that race, and to help them to see that actually they are beautiful, positive souls. So I just wanted to make sure that, you know, when you hear those terms and those races, you do get a bit of fear, don't you? But there's no need at all.
And I think I remember after our session, I just looked, and I got quite a vision of a grey crying, and I knew it was me. And I looked and I was like, oh, wow, you went through such a hardship, a war-torn, soul-destructive place, and you still came out to the light. And what I felt, and I feel it's so important for us to do now, and anybody that is brave enough to look into their records is look and have it awaken in you, because what you realize, if I've been through all that and come back as I am today and still stand in the light, I think it's just such an amazing self-empowerment thing, because I felt really proud that I could go through all these lifetimes, and I remember a lot of them now, and always be a warrior for the light and be like, and don't get me wrong, I've had lifetimes, you know, I worked with a witch wound for a long time, having written first, and I saw how much I'd persecuted witches, as well as being persecuted. And now I really understand, and I think it's through having such an old history that you get programmed to do these things that aren't forces of beings that care about your soul and your soul's consciousness. So working with healers such as yourself that are bringing people's soul awareness, I just don't think there's anything more powerful we can do at this time.
Yeah, it's all about raising awareness of who you are as a soul, so that you can then use that to a good effect in this life, which is what you're doing through writing your plays and raising awareness about things. One thing I did want to mention is I was reading this book by Steve Noble, the spiritual entrepreneur.
Which is brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really good. So a great book to get if you are starting a spiritual business or have a spiritual business. And then I got to a bit where I was reading about a woman who was channeling her witch lives, and it was actually you. So you're in Steve's book. And I just thought I'd read a bit about it, because it's fascinating of how you had your spiritual awakening, if that's okay.
Yeah,
fascinating story. So it says you were a successful and living a London hedonistic lifestyle, but your spirit was crushed. And you had a dark night of the soul following the death of your nan and a few other things that happened. And what you really wanted to be was an actress. That was like that was where your soul was at. So you started to have acting classes, and one day when you were in acting class, you felt the spirit of your nan appear, and you felt her hand on your back, and she whispered in your ear, "Don't be so afraid." And you were in awe of what happened, but you didn't know what to make of it. And then the following day, the director called you up to audition, and he placed his hand on your back and said, "Would it mean anything if I said don't be so afraid?" And that was like when you had a wow moment, that what you felt you were actually channeling. And then as you kind of pursued your acting, you started to kind of connect with your soul. You trained in Reiki. And then in one session, you saw a life where you were being hung for being a witch. And that led you to writing this play called AWAKEN, which is fascinating because the story behind that is, I think it's a nurse, isn't it? In this kind of time,
Yeah.
who is working with a patient who's dying, and she starts to remember her lifetime as a witch and her healing skills. And she wants to use healing in the hospital as a nurse, but she knows that it's not a done thing. So it's a fascinating play to watch, and I will put the link to the play on YouTube in the description of this video so people can watch it. But basically, you were saying that your acting kind of progressed when you started tapping into your soul and tapping into these lives, whereas prior to that, when you were just acting without having been awakened, it wasn't that successful. Is there anything else you want to say on that? As I captured?
Yeah, so it actually happened together hand in hand with the acting, because I didn't train to be an actress until I was 35. So the dark night of the soul came. My nan, the spirit of my nan, came in the room on my first audition, basically. So I just want to sort of clarify to say that I was trying to be normal at the time. I was trying to live a normal life.
Yeah.
And boom, it was like 7 years ago. It was like, no, that's not the route that you're going. And like most people, I just was like, I don't know what to do with this. I want to be normal. I don't want spirits chatting to me in the room, you know, as much as it was amazing seeing my nan. And I'm so grateful for it now. I have a lot of my mediumship history that's come back to me that I'm so pleased. But at the time, I was like, I just want to be an actress. What? And what I will say is that actually, if you are, what my soul was doing was like, no, it's bigger than this. It's bigger than this. Don't play small. It's bigger than this. And I think you'll know yourself that when you tap into your soul's consciousness, it's like, then you're flying. Because I was saying to you before, I've been working, you know, I work with people to get their soul story. I channel all my soul stories for my work. And when I worked with you, I was like, oh yeah, this is someone that's been working in this field for a long time, knows what she's doing. Because when you work as a healer, you kind of know, you go, oh yeah, I'm in safe hands. This person really knows what they're doing. And I was so surprised after listening to a podcast about you that it had been quite when we'd worked together, a recent transition. And I think that's what I'd say about when you are aligning with your soul. It's like all that, those gifts, those memories, those ways of working just come flooding back.
Exactly. Everything just slots into place, doesn't it?
Yeah. And you go, how do I know? How do I do this? How do I know how to do this? And it's all like coming back. And so I think it's a really powerful, and that's why I booked the session with you, because I was a little bit lost at the time, because my dad was very sick with cancer, and I was at home taking care of him, which is quite strange because it's also what I'd written about in AWAKEN, someone becoming a carer and a nurse for someone that was very sick. And I'd already written it, and then I started to live it in my own family, and I'd lost my way a bit about where I should be and what I was really meant to be doing here. And so I booked in the session to kind of get some more clarity as a sort of a person that always wants to follow my soul's wisdom, because that's what I'm here for. And what I got and what changed for me since our session was, you mentioned not knowing me that well, that I was instrumental in wanting to bring in the new earth and very connected to 5D. And I'd had this kind of thing that I wasn't talking about, that was 5D theatre. And what happened since then is I actually birthed my own company called 5D Theatre, because I want to bring the new earth in so badly. And it kind of
Fantastic.
made me go from feeling like, am I following my soul's purpose as much as I should be, to actually moving back to London, which was a really hard decision because I had that kind of guilt that I should move home, and to go, well, you know, I love my family, but I'm also here to do something that my big old soul needs to do for the whole of humanity. Basically,
Mm.
it sounds big, but that session was a confirmation that yes, I was right. It is big, and I need to just crack on because that's
Mm.
what I'm actually coming here for. And
Mm.
that's not to say that you know, that family aren't important. My family are very important, but you've got to know that your soul and your spirit is important to nourish as well as
Mm.
other commitments.
Mm.
So it gave me a lot of faith and courage to really step onto the path over the last year. So yeah.
Amazing. So the message is stop resisting your soul mission, and just go for it to those
Yeah.
watching.
Yes. And even
Yeah.
someone like me who doesn't, you know, who does tap into soul as well, I was still, yeah, in resistance,
Mm.
which I know Steve talks a lot about in that book as well. It's like,
Yeah, he does. It's a brilliant book, The Spiritual Entrepreneur by Steve Noble. Um, Now, when you booked, you also booked in for your sister. Do you want to tell us a bit about that and what happened?
yeah, I'd love to. So yeah, basically we both booked for Christmas last year, a year ago, wasn't it? And I thought we both need to be a bit more aligned, and kind of get some guidance on our whole records. And I have to say, the guidance that you gave both of us is phenomenal. Like, I haven't heard anyone give so much information and detail.
Yeah, I'm a detail queen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which I tap into kind of people's souls and kind of read their stories. And
yeah.
brilliant, because it's like you need to work with people that cover your blind spots.
Mm.
And I'm quite out there, you know. I speak about aliens, demonology, spirits, you know. I chat to souls and spirits quite openly. So for me it was like, oh yeah, great. Loads of stuff I didn't know in my session, which was amazing. But my sister's not so far out there, but she loved it as well. And what was so beautiful for us, because I felt that me and my sister have a real soul connection. I've always felt it. I was like, we're both on a mission together. And what you pulled out in our records is that we've been to the same angelic school. And
Yeah,
just when I found that out later, I just saw us both sitting there training and learning, and it kind of brought me closer to in a whole way, that I was like, we're just contracted to come into each other's lives again and again and again, and we'll always help each other out. And we both had these kind of darker timelines because we're both really old souls, and we both had amazing light, amazing things that we've done, and that we're still together today to do these things. And she's launched a business in the last year as well and really gone flying, and I did it with 5D theatre. And I think it was just amazing to realize how much we'd incarnated and come together to do some work. So
wow.
yeah, it gave me chills when I found out about it from my sister. She was like, yeah, we've been at angel school together. And I was like,
I
yeah.
love that angel school.
Yeah.
Yeah, you both were in your primary realm was Archangel Uriel, and
Yes.
secondary realm Archangel Chamuel.
Yeah.
So
And you
that's
read her kids as well, my sisters, my nieces.
oh God, yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes,
It was brilliant.
I forgot about that. Yeah,
Yeah, their relationship, how they play out today. I think
yeah,
one has come in as an assistant, one of them was a wizard, and one of them like was the bird to their assistant.
yeah. So for those watching, I do this for your children. Obviously, I don't have a one-to-one with them, but I'll go through the soul profile document, and it's watered down. But I can find out which archangel realm they work in, and more about their past lives, and it helps you to understand your children a
Yeah.
lot more, and where they're coming from and what their gifts are. So yes, I've forgotten I'd done that for your sister. So that's
Yeah,
amazing.
it made a lot of sense when she was telling me about it. I was like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you'd also it came out you'd spent some time in Atlantis, and we channeled a life where you were in Atlantis priestess, and one of your skills that, well, I think everybody levitated in Atlantis from when I've actually been there and channeled it, but I saw you levitating a lot, and you were also in Atlantis trying to stop that descending, and that's what you're kind of doing with Earth today with your 5D theatre. You're helping with the ascension of Gaia.
And that was a lovely confirmation, because I was like, why do I care so much? Like I like spend most of my time just going, right, we can't let the world fall again. You know what's happened before. And it's like, that was a really great confirmation, because I tapped into a lot that I was more of a sort of mermaid Lemurian spirit.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the lifetimes that I remembered. And Atlantis for me was just traumatic.
Mm.
My second play is about dark technology in ancient Egypt from the fall of Atlantis. And you spoke about this a bit in my reading, and I was like, oh, and I hadn't really put my play out there, but I was working on it behind the scenes, and you were like, oh yeah, so you're quite connected to Atlantis and the technology and when it fell. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm writing about it. But
oh, wow.
Yes, so it was bang on. It was absolutely bang on. But I'd never really realized that I was so passionate about it today, but I knew I remembered the fall of it, and I knew it devastated me.
Mm.
And then hearing that, I was like, oh, because I was so instrumental in working with it before, that it's still there in my kind of soul records that, you know, it fell. And so I'm always like, come on, people, look at the dark agenda, look what's going on, look at the spiritual wars, let's never let our planet fall again. But I hadn't tapped into the absolute gifts of Atlantis. So it was really nice that you brought through that kind of priestess, and then she became very apparent. And I was like, okay, so what happened before it fell, and what gifts can I pick up from then? And because obviously, you know, people that were working at Atlantis are quite, you know, they're master souls, so we need to remember this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
All come together and work in that way, because it's like sometimes you put a cap on your spiritual gifts and you think, oh, you know, when you was talking about levitating, I was like, what? But yeah, I do remember like winged beings, and when I look at situations, I always sort of fly above it and feel like I'm soaring up high.
Well, that's another thing that came out, wasn't it? That you'd had lifetimes in Procyon, and those planets are, you are winged beings. The Procyon beings are winged beings who live in tree houses.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one thing you said that I didn't resonate with, and it was really funny how it came out later, is you were like, your original incarnation was a whale.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have no connection with whale. I don't want to be a whale. I was like, oh, I'm disappointed. And then 1 or 2 months ago, one of the healers that I work with, who's just brilliant, Malada, who does womb matrix work, she did a call out. She said, I'm doing a whale, syncing with the whale healing.
Ooh, lovely.
And I signed up to do it, and I was just crying through the whole, it felt like I'd come home.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stop with being like connecting with the
wow.
Mother Nile had been taken over, which was Egypt that I was working with, but the whale consciousness, I'm getting chills now.
Yeah, I am.
Like I hadn't had any. And I think that's what's amazing about getting your records read in such detail, is that you might have these blind spots that you've forgotten about. And that's the power of what you do with giving over the details, is that it's very important for me to remember those incarnations, because it was like when you can feel like you're finally home in your skin because you've remembered your ancestry, you've remembered your lineage. I don't think there's a bigger gift that you can give people. And I know that I work a lot with that, with getting people to give their soul story, but I had no connection, no affinity. And then I spent some time with my dad just watching whale programs, because he's big into the animal kingdom. And it was really like, oh, a real beautiful, homecoming.
Oh my God, my heart is so full hearing all of this, because you know,
because you don't know.
I don't know all this. Yes,
so
this
someone goes off
absolutely
and lives your life. And when you got in touch and said about doing a testimony, I was like, I've absolutely I think you'd come into my head that day, and then you'd message.
Well, you came into mine because I read you in
Oh,
here.
right.
So
And I thought, yeah, you need to know, we haven't, you said it, I hadn't had a session with you since April, but the work of that big Akashic
yeah,
reading
wow,
changed me. And so many
yeah.
things, loads of things came up within the first few weeks, and you give a lot of work to do as well, like a lot
Mm.
of work, which was
Yeah, I'm also a homework queen, a detail queen and a homework queen.
yeah, and I did all the work, and it really, helped me to take that power back, and to do all the soul work and the retrieval. And the one work that I couldn't figure out at the time was I had quite a lot of karma.
Yeah, you
um,
did. You were at the high scale of the karma,
yeah,
35%, I think.
and now one of my leading work as a healer is to work with that karma and understand karma in a way that I didn't feel at the time people really understood, about how you do accrue karma for sure, and you give out karma, and I'm all about that. But what I now believe is that there's an agenda that takes away your free will, and you accrue the karma through not even realizing.
Mm.
And actually, a lot of us have come in at a certain level to clear this collective karma, to help humanity when we've done I'm not saying bypass your own karma, don't, but
Yeah.
all my plays are about past life karma and current karma. So we've been working with it diligently. But
Mm.
then there was a nugget that I was like, oh, this is about, there's a collective that are going, because humanity's been programmed so badly, forgot that they were spiritual beings, forgot that they were soul, that there's a karma that they've accrued that they didn't build up themselves. And that's what I've been working with.
Oh,
And
that's
it's through
really
you
interesting. I like
yeah.
that.
And
Yeah.
it was through you going, oh, your karma's really high. And I thought, hang on, but I haven't been that dark in that many lifetimes. That's not the right amount of karma. So I've been, there's a
Ah,
things that I've
I'm
been
going to write that down. So through losing free will, it looks like people are collecting karma that's not theirs.
yeah. So basically, it goes about the negative alien agenda, which is what is a through
Yeah.
line of my plays. Lisa Renee talks about it brilliantly. I haven't heard many people talk about it, but it's about the idea that, and I've looked at this a lot, about what people do when they sell their soul. I call it sell the soul to the devil, or whatever you want to call it. But that so my second play is about mind control. So it's the things that you do under, and I think we might have seen that a lot of people have been subject to mind control quite prevalently over the past couple of years. And it's the things that you do that you're not even conscious, because how can you
Mm.
give how are you in free will if you don't know that you're in an illusion, if you don't know that
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
soul? So it's like there's certain things that we do that accrue that shouldn't be on us. And that is one of my purposes as a healer, why I out the dark agenda a lot, even though I was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
Do I have to? I love being in the light, love and light phase, but it got to the point, and I think you were talking about before, about, I mean, how fast your awakening was. And I think it's happening for a lot of people, but it also means that people that had their dark night of the soul quite a few years ago have to step up to the next level and really work on this. For me, it was the karma clearing, and that wasn't activated until we had your session. And I just couldn't figure out why I couldn't clear it with normal processes.
Mm. Yeah, because when we checked in your follow-up,
Yeah.
it had only gone down from 35% to 31%.
Yeah.
And normally my clients see like at least a 20% drop after they've done the karmic clearing workshop that I
Yeah.
give them. So at the time you were saying to me, why do you think that it hasn't gone down very much? And I didn't have the answers. But
Yeah.
it sounds like you've done some
Yeah.
digging on it yourself.
Well, it led me into, like, I guess, as a sort of a healer, what my bigger work was. So there's so many, it was
Mm, yeah.
like, okay, because I did all the other practices and they were brilliant, and it really felt, and when we met again, you were like, oh, that's really cleared, and that's, yep, you've done that, you've done that, you've done that. And it was only the karma thing left. And it really, I sat with that and I was like, oh, that's because it's bigger.
Mm.
And there's a lot of black magic that comes from ancient Egypt.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
So if you've been in that lifetime and that's the play that I'm writing about, I was like, oh, okay. So the black magic is taking away free will, and it means you're carrying dark karma. So I've been doing a lot of reversal clearing, because although I wrote my first play about being a witch, it became very clear that the second play was about the dark side of the craft.
Yeah.
And what I call it, not in my name, because I claim the name witch, knowing full well that some people do satanic abuse in the name of witchcraft.
Yeah.
So that has all to do with the kind of karma that I'm still clearing.
Oh wow, so interesting, and a fantastic chat. Yeah, Black Magic in Egypt. There's a reading that I do called Paving the Pathways with a colleague called Alison, who's based in the US. And for the first part of the reading, I go into the Akashic Records and channel a life where you've got a block, and then I send it to Alison, and she uses soul language to clear it, and then you get a recording of the 30 minutes of me channeling the life and Alison doing the soul language. And I just keep finding black magic from Egypt with people. And then in one of the clients that we cleared it for, and she ended up sending it out to her circle because everybody had somehow been affected by the black magic. So she cleared the circles.
Which one session's that? My legs are like, oh, I need to book that.
It's called Paving the Pathway. I'll put the link in the description, and I'll send it to you. But yeah, Alison's this unbelievably fantastic healer who I connected with through Facebook, really. There's a tribe of us that connected through a Facebook group, but her abilities are unreal.
Yeah,
and
isn't it? I'm finding that the collaborations between healers are so powerful.
Yeah, it's coming up a lot that we all need to start collaborating with each other a lot, because there's obviously power when you join together. I've got goosebumps again.
Yeah, when
you join together with people and stop being in isolation. And it's interesting, I was doing some work looking at my birth chart, my north node and my south node. And the south node is, when you read about it, is where you're comfortable as a soul, and north node is where you're uncomfortable, but you've got to go there to grow. And I'm comfortable working on my own and being, individual, which I am. And my growth is working with others and allowing others to contribute to things. So I'm really pushing myself to do that at the moment because I know that's where my soul growth is. So very interesting.
Wow, I feel like that would be similar with me, where I was like, I'm really comfortable working with spirituality and the light and bringing that kind of very, very angelic consciousness through. And then what happened to me as I was doing that was like, and now you've got to really grow in the dark because this is where your power is.
You might want to look at your birth chart then and read about your south and your north node and see if that correlates.
Yeah, that blows my mind, because I'm like, I don't get it, because I think that much I like feel into things, and I'm like, but probably really would help me. But I'm like,
yeah, you can get a free birth chart. Just Google free birth chart. You just put your birth details in, then you'll get like a 20-page document telling you absolutely everything. And just go to your south node and north node bits and read about them. Because that's another awareness about you as a soul.
Yeah,
that you can tap into.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
still giving me homework even on
that's me. I think I'm a natural teacher, to be honest.
You need to do this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was lovely connecting with you again, Cheryl, because as I said, the last time was April. So lovely to hear how you're getting on and how the reading that you had with me has kind of opened you up to all of these things. So I'll put all of the links on how, for the people watching, can go and watch Cheryl's plays, link in with her in other ways. Just go to the description box in this video. But yeah, thanks very much, Cheryl, and I'm sure we'll connect again soon.
Yes, and thank you. Honestly, it was I have spoken to a lot of people, and I said, look, if you want to get to know yourself in detail, book an Akashic reading with you. So
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.